I've been reading excerpts from Whereof One Cannot Speak, and now I'm going to jump to near the end of the book. So the things said here, to put it in the proper context, there is a massive amount of material that has not been shared so far. Okay? Most of this book has not been shared. All right? So I will end with a few readings that might be useful to the listener, even though you haven't heard or read most of what's in this book. A joy that is hard to come by. I've been trying to share something incredible that could easily be missed, as it's buried in a lot of material. I really don't want it to be missed. It is the most important aspect of this whole book. But there is no way to share this consciousness directly. And yet the joy, humor, and happiness that is available with this depth of consciousness is too good not to give it a try. As you've seen so far, it's possible to make headway with most of this material, even if in the end it is up to you to make the final leap into a consciousness that is generally unavailable to people and is literally inconceivable to the human mind. My commitment is to what's true, not to what a mind can conceive. Therefore, you must create, or at least entertain, the possibility that consciousness and becoming conscious is not limited to mental conception. Still, I want to continue attempting to convey the very nature of existence, not just the existence of you, which usually gets all the attention, but the existence of anything and everything. This is a huge paradox in all this. Yet if we chip away at the edges of this paradox, perhaps we can lessen the leap needed to square this contradiction and enigma. In order to pursue such a leap, you will need to contemplate. So let's look at some of the components and pitfalls of attempting to become more deeply conscious. Taking up a spiritual practice. You can become conscious of the absolute inside or outside of any practice. But the practice itself can't produce that result, only you can. A good practice may help you focus your attention on your inquiry and empower your intention to grasp what's true, but don't confuse method for results. No method is absolute. It is an invention that may or may not be useful. Every method is only a method, and none are the truth. No practice by itself can produce the result of a direct consciousness, and shouldn't be held as if it can. It may greatly assist you in doing that, but you have to do it. The method can't. This is what is meant by direct. Within a good practice, we tend to whittle away at our experience, eliminating beliefs and assumptions, programming and attachments, and whatever is unreal or unnecessary. This is appropriate. As we turn greater amounts of our attention and efforts onto uncovering our unconscious assumptions, while working hard to become conscious of every facet and corner of our experience and reality, strangely, both our practice and the stockpile of our identity are reduced. Sharpening a knife on a wet stone, both stone and knife are diminished. Just so, in an effective practice, our self-identity, assumptions, and beliefs also become diminished, giving us the sharp edge of conscious clarity that can cut through ignorance and sever consciousness attachment to mind, self, and perceptive experience. Over time, the practice itself also becomes simpler. This direction begins to empower the possibility of making a leap where we merge the relative and absolute into one consciousness. Yet such a leap in consciousness is extremely rare. One thing to consider in all of this, difficult as it may be, is that what is perceived, whatever we are aware of in our objective and subjective experience, is not the same as whatever is there. As Buddha said, what you see as reality is like a cataract on the eye of my true sight. His true sight, we postulate, is a direct consciousness of reality and not the indirect relative phenomenon that is perception, concept, and experience. Our job is to have this same true sight. Any practice attempting to realize the absolute nature of existence should include both sides of the same coin. In order to do this, you must understand that the practice itself can't produce absolute consciousness. Again, only you can, or should I say, only consciousness can, because it is consciousness, which is also the true nature of existence. So inherent in the practice should be an awareness that is reaching for something outside of anything that can be accomplished within it. It is as if representing the truth without itself ever being true. It might be sort of like being in a dream and contemplating being awake, knowing this won't succeed within the dream, but the attempt itself provides a link to the possibility of actually waking up while you're still dreaming. So perhaps we could say that the practice is more of a representative expression manifesting something that can't be manifest. Something like language represents a distinction with the form, a sound, a shape, etc., that itself is not at all that distinction, but at the same time brings the presence of the distinction to the fore. In this case, the absolute is not a distinction, even the distinction we make to think or speak of it. So it can't manifest in that way. Therefore, this practice would simply act as a placeholder for the absolute within indirect perceptive experience, pointing attention toward direct consciousness. There is a danger, however, that your practice forms the belief, which is not useful and only supports unconsciousness, that it somehow represents and through its particular process will produce absolute consciousness, or that it slips into a ritual of blinding believing in it, thus becoming something like a religion. This should be guarded against. The intent should always be to become completely conscious of what is absolutely true. If you already are, then there is no need for a practice. But even then, you should take care that any forms of expression or appreciation or communication don't become mindless rituals, dogma, beliefs, or merely routines. And remember, there is always something more of which you are ignorant. But if this is all a bridge too far, what do you do in the meantime? If you can't square the absolute with the relative, where should you put your attention and efforts? There is no place to put attention other than on the life you are living. The only added ingredient that transforms your life into a practice is to ask, what is it? No matter what you experience as you, life, others, relationship, existence, or anything else, what is it? What is its nature? How did it come to pass? Why does it exist? Once you honestly and openly investigate reality and your experience of it, you are contemplating without changing a thing. You can contemplate as a separate practice, focusing on a subject, attempting to become conscious of its essence or nature. You can also investigate anything you experience without any particular setting, posture, technique, or method. Simply want to discover what is ultimately true, even of the mundane and the normal. As I've confessed elsewhere, one of my favorite quotes is applicable here. It's not that I'm so much smarter than anyone else. It's that I stay with the problem longer. Albert Einstein. This is the only practice you really need. Seek to know everything, and eventually you may. Then all will reveal itself, and the relative and absolute will become one. You'll live out the rest of your life and then fade into absolute nothing where you already are, or something like that. Of course, there is a lot to become conscious of that aren't absolute or even existential. Here, the goal is different. It is to improve your experience, not to grasp the truth. Remember that. We could take up practices that increase awareness, improve mind and emotions, heighten sensitivity and health, discover recognized aspects of our experience or world, and so on. These kinds of practices are easier to understand than the spiritual or absolute contemplative practices, and usually less prone to mischief. We like them because they improve our experience of life, but of course, they take work and repetition, pretty much the definition of practice, and so we may be too lazy to take them on.